Hey there, held captive media stands out there. You guys probably didn't notice, but I had COVID for a little bit, so the posting had slowed down a bit. Some of our extra videos that come out during the week stopped showing up. It was just our backlogged content. So before we get into any of this, I just wanted to say that more content's coming. Thank you for coming back. And if you don't know who we are, my name's Logan. This is Zane. He streams, I guess. And we're here to talk about a movie requested by one of you, Brightburn. Brightburn is a science fiction horror superhero movie written by even more people with the last name Gunn and produced by James himself. It essentially operates as the most expensive what if issue ever, but instead of being put on a couple of DC splash pages, it was committed to a $12 million film. The what if concept in question was, what if Superman fell to Earth, but was there to do bad instead of good? And instead of becoming good Goku style, he becomes a total dick who tries killing people and breaks a girl's arm. The question is, did the what if concept make for an entertaining movie? Let's talk about it. Let's get into Brightburn. So, Brightburn to me, before we even get into it, is like the definition of wasted potential.
Really? I
really feel that way.
Okay.
I think that it could have been awesome as fuck, and it was just okay. There's stuff to like about it. Badger was in the movie. What's up? No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, the guy who plays Badger in Breaking Bad was in the movie. Yeah. I can't remember his name right now, but he was good in it, and the performances were great. Elizabeth Banks obviously great. And I didn't really mind any of the performances. I just think that the movie amounted to a whole lot of nothing. Just my personal opinion. Now, does that mean that there's like nothing entertaining about it? No, like the movie has plenty of entertaining moments in it. There's tons of good scares in it, tons of really over the top gore and action sequences. But for me, it could have been so much better. So I'm going to give it like a 6.5 out of 10.
Okay.
Obviously you felt differently about it, so I'm curious to hear what you thought.
I think that it might have just been me nerding out. I've always had like a love-hate relationship with the idea of Superman. So like I know,
because I'm a Superman fan, and you always used to give me shit for that.
So for the most part, like I feel like as I've gotten older, I've grown to kind of like appreciate him a little bit more. Because my big criticism is, I feel like a pretty easy criticism to make is like, he's never in peril. There's never anything like he's got like, there's that one page where he gets like a beep on his watch or whatever, and he's 10 million galaxies away, and he just fucking bloop and gets there before like a car that was thrown hits the ground. And it's like that level of perfection. Like he is the top tier. Like you can't get higher than that. So all of his stories always felt like they don't have any stakes to it. Mm-hmm. But like as I've gotten older, I've read more stuff into him, and he was made by like two Jewish kids from New York who are just kind of like going through, and they're like, we want something to.
I thought they were from Canada. They're from New York. I didn't know that.
I'm pretty sure. Again, I'm not a Superman stan, so take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. That might not be, but I'm pretty sure.
You better hope they're Jewish, or that's going to be the most. Like, is he like an anti-Semite? What's going on? Why do you assume they were Jewish?
It was about kind of like the pinnacle of what like being good could be. Mm-hmm. So I do love a lot of those stories. Like you put me onto American Alien. That it's a lot more of those like the more human side of things, and I kind of liked this one because it takes that and kind of spins it on its head, because it's like what makes Superman interesting is the human side of it, and this is like, what if he wasn't able to control, or he wasn't able to fully accept the human side of it? And that's where I found it to be a more interesting story. And I do agree that like they could have done better on certain things. There was a lot of actors that I remember seeing, and I was like, oh, hey, that's really cool that they're in here. So that was fun. I do think that, it's not a perfect movie by any stretch of the imagination.
I just want to give my take on Superman real fast since you brought it up. My thing with Superman, and the reason why I feel like your criticisms are pretty they're very common, and like I've listened to them and I hear them out. But the point of the Superman story, and you know this too, is that it's not about whether he can be defeated or how strong he is. The story has nothing to do with that. It's essentially the story of an immigrant, a man from the outside looking in, trying to understand. And I feel like this movie fundamentally doesn't understand that about Superman. So that part of it, I felt like was lost to me because like he is like this nerd, like he is a nerdy kid and everything in the movie, but it's not like something that they highlight. Not really. Like, it's not like a main plot point. And it literally could have been. Like, this movie would have been so much better if it was bullied Superman. Because that's what happened to the real Superman, right?
Yeah.
So you make the school shooter movie with Superman, right? It's fucking kids bully him, treat him like shit. One day he snaps. That's what I wanted this movie to be, but instead it's about predestination, what he was meant to do, and then it has all these like mythos of like, hey, he's supposed to be evil because he's just supposed to be, and gives us no background or idea of why he is supposed to be.
Yeah,
I just think that it was weak writing that could have been a lot better. Lacey, did you want to say something?
Hi guys, it's
Producer
Lacey.
Yay.
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about this. I agree more with Logan on this.
I know you do.
And I'm not a big superhero fan to begin with. Like, I know who Superman is, all that, and I immediately got that this is just like if Superman was bad.
Yeah, it's the most expensive what if ever.
But there was just, I don't know if I have a particular reason as to why I feel this way, but it just wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough. Like
it felt like the writing was weak. And it felt like the mythos weren't well explained, but so apparent in the story. Yeah. Like, he was a loving kid that loved his parents,
and then randomly just turned.
And then it gives you no insight, reason, or understanding.
Like, I feel like the filming of this movie was well done. Like, things looked good. It's just, I feel like, I guess it was maybe a lack in the writing.
That's
like,
how
I feel like
about
your pitch for like the bullying thing would make more sense than what was presented to
and
us.
It'd be closer to the Superman story, you know? Like, Superman, oddly enough, was a victim of bullying in a lot. I mean, if you look at Man of Steel, which a lot of people shit on, but isn't truly that bad of a movie, has a lot of great sequences where he's being bullied by kids, but because of how strong he is, he can't do anything. Well, how interesting of a concept would it be? It's like, well, he is strong enough, and this kid finally broke. That would be so much more interesting to me, because child psychology is not a light issue. It's a complicated thing, and like, you know, when you give a child as much ammunition as this child, and you mix it with hormones and you know, just general like insecurities and ignorances, you could really make a great story, and they just like didn't do that. And it sucks because the parents were played really well. I love who they cast as the parents. They were such a believable and nice couple.
They were, and I feel like they're acting.
And then he just ends up being like a total, you know.
Yeah, it was
lame.
one of those things where there were definitely instances of like I do feel like that there are obviously things that needed to be fixed in this movie that like they could have.
But I feel like when we were watching this, you were very hyped for it.
No,
I was also nerding out.
I get that though, because like imagine first of all, there hasn't been a Superman movie since Man of Steel in 2013. And there hasn't been a lot of good Superman movies, even in our lifetime, because Superman Returns is not what I'd call a good Superman movie. Batman versus Superman was horrible. We all saw it together at the drive-in and wanted to blow our brains out. So I just don't think, like, I'm not going to judge you on like really getting down with it the first time around. But man,
I'm sure that on subsequent watches, I would.
What did you end up giving it anyway? I'm curious.
So I
don't think you actually said. I interrupted you. Sorry.
I'd probably give it a 7.5. Like, I did enjoy this movie. They're absolutely like, it is still. I would consider this a fun watch. I would suggest if people are like nerds or looking for like kind of that in between of like horror and nerddom, like this is an interesting way to do that. There were some legitimately like freaky scenes in this where I was like, oh shit, that gave me chills, like that freaked me the fuck out. But
do you wish they would have continued the cinematic universe that they had planned?
I'm not mad that they weren't able to continue on with the cinematic universe. It was neat to kind of see like, oh, hey, like we're kind of like, this is happening and this weird thing is happening and this weird thing is happening. Like maybe we'll flesh that out more. But I also kind of liked it being a full stop there where it's like sometimes things happen in the world and we don't get closure on them, and that's okay. Like there are so many things that are trying to create like big cinematic universes, and if it's not connected to something, then it's meaningless. And it's like, no, this can still be a good one-off thing. Like it doesn't have to, like you don't have to spend all of your time trying to create these big universes. Just create something that's good. Even though, like, yes, this has its drawbacks, I do wish that there was more of that fight between the predestination and everything.
Yeah. I mean, well, you know, let's get more into that with the spoiler section. I feel like we're already kind of digging too deep. So guys, we'll be right back. We're going to get into all the spoilers and get into all the details of the movie. We'll talk about the kills and everything like that. So we'll be right back. Hey, super friends, and we're back with spoilers for Brightburn. Okay, you on the break couldn't even compose yourself. You're like, there's one scene that saved it for me. Tell me the scene now.
So it almost saved it as far as like the predestination angle and everything. There's that, it's right there at the fucking end, and they almost bring it back. They like make that whole, it's the mom is like holding him and he's like, I want to be good. I want to make things right. I want to fix things. And then he hears like they have like this real nice emotional scene, and then like he hears the glass or the part of the ship or whatever that she's going to use to try to kill him. And then he goes through, like fucking brings her up and like just drops her, all that shit. And then it hard cuts over to the little end credits out there. But that could have been
with Billie Eilish's bad guy.
Yeah. Which like, it's like, yeah, I'm not mad at a
I liked it.
Yeah. I'm not mad at
I thought it was cool.
Like, I'm not mad at an ending that's not like, oh, all wrapped up in a pretty bow. Like, I like when they're like, oh, his mother was trying to kill him. So, yeah, he full on broke at that point. But there is a lot of that stuff where, like, one of the few, like, scenes that they actually show, like, oh, he's a nerdy kid, is the Wasp scene where he kind of, like, he goes through, they're like talking about like, oh, well, why do the Wasps do this? And it's like, actually they're brought in, they're like basically it just foreshadows the whole plot of the movie.
Yeah.
Like
I thought that scene was terrible.
Yeah.
But that's fine that you liked it.
Well, it felt like lazy writing, but
yeah, exactly.
It set the stage of like, okay, this is exactly what happened.
And
We've
it
got
also,
an aggressive alien race that
it like drew him in this nerdy light that is never elaborated on or touched on again. It's like, we need you to be we need you to be nerdy for this scene about wasps, and then never again. Like, you're just gonna draw your stupid fucking symbol in your notebook 400,000 times.
Yeah, and it's like, I wish that maybe they had gone a little bit hard. Like, his mom was a painter, so maybe like go a little bit harder with like the nerdy arty kid, like like showing like intricate like design jumps between like the outfit that he wanted to create for his superhero persona or whatever, or like do some more of that stuff. Producer Lacey?
You know what I wish they would have done?
Yeah.
I think if they wanted to write it the way that they wrote it, maybe go back like 3-4 weeks and see how he was before, and then see the switch. Like, because they talk about him in a different light, but the audience never gets to see him that way.
We never get to see him in any light but his transformation.
Yeah.
And you know, like the only time you get to see him act kind of like a petulant kid, you know, like a stubborn
you get those
kid.
Intro scenes.
You get like the birthday party, right? Yeah. But like still not a great scene. Like still not that great, especially since they do end up going hunting, and it's like this whole thing, and they never really elaborate on it other than. Oh, I will say one thing though. Him blasting his dad's face off with laser vision was fucking metal.
Yeah.
I get that
absolutely fucking wild.
I get that like it wasn't really that earned, but it was kind of fucking metal to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like there was so much time dedicated to him being like a little creepy guy, you know? Like him being a little slasher villain, but there wasn't a lot of time dedicated to telling us anything about him at all.
Like, I feel like I would have felt more like sad about the transformation if they had like set the scene a little bit better, like go through kind of maybe show a little bit more of that, like the like him and the girl, like him crushing on the girl a little bit more before he just like full on creeper mode activated.
Yeah, like what's crazy about it too is there's nothing really there's nothing plot wise that really activated him, so to speak. Like there is, but there isn't. Like they never dedicate to this idea of like a startled change. He just sort of is getting shittier. Yeah. And it doesn't really make a lot of sense. And like they waste time on scenes like him stopping a lawnmower blade with his hands. Like I get that that's a cool demonstration, but you've done such little to establish these characters. Why am I getting scenes like this?
Yeah.
Or the diner murder with I loved that whole scene.
Slasher, like as a slasher scene, that's a really cool scene.
Yeah.
As a in this movie, it was like it felt like a lot of
it felt like DLC. Like it felt like it had nothing to do with the movie at all. And it was cool, and I really enjoyed it, and like the red eye and everything, it was like really interesting.
Yeah.
And it just makes you wonder, like, okay, you guys clearly have the ability to make interesting sequences. You're working with James Gunn, you know, like one of the best superhero movie makers out there right now.
Every single shot in this movie, by the way, was just fucking beautiful. When he dropped, I can't remember the actor's name, but the guy who plays Badger, when he drops him and his,
in his jaw. Yeah, it's
God.
And that scene kind of worked for me because even though it felt a little rushed at the time, I look back on that scene as a really good one because at the beginning of the movie, you do see him having a friendly relationship with that character. Yeah. And then there is that twist. And you're like, okay, we're starting to see that he's definitely unraveling now. Like there's no arguments or questions. He didn't just kill a person, he killed his friend.
Yeah.
That's like one good scene. But where are the rest of the scenes that make him a character? He feels more like a force or an object.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that works in context because there's so many times where they're asking us to basically feel a certain way about him changing. And I just don't give a fuck because he's just been an evil, creepy little kid the whole time. He's been the Omen the whole time.
Yeah, I do wish that they had spent more time. Like that's one of those things where it's like absolutely show a little bit more, like make us feel for this character.
Like what's on the cutting room floor? Like what did they take out? I would be real. I have the Blu-ray. We should look into that. Yeah. I've never looked at the special features or anything. But like there has to be something they took out.
That's always one of the big things that like a lot of horror movies or whatever that always takes me out is when they're like, "Oh, we really want you to be scared or we really want you to be sad about the loss of this character." And they've done nothing to make us care about this character. It's like
and like horror movies can have in-depth emotions. I mean, the It series, like Andy Muschietti's It movies that came out a couple years ago, even the second one, which isn't my favorite, has tons of great character moments and emotional depth. And like this movie doesn't have to be that, but it should have been more than what it was, especially with Elizabeth Banks, and I always forget the guy's name, but he's in The Office. He's a good actor. Those two had such great chemistry as the parents that I would have died for like 3 more scenes with them, you know, just like a little bit more where they're actually being characters with their son. Like have a scene where they go to fucking Coney Island, you know, give us something. Fuck. What were you going to say, Lacey?
Honestly, I think one of my favorite scenes when you guys were talking about the diner, I think that whole thing was really well done.
It's really well done.
It was super cinematic.
Doesn't it feel like it's from a different movie though?
It does almost. It was kind of like insert good part here.
Yeah.
And then the cop in that, like that,
very well done.
Like when he goes over to it and he like on the glass,
and then you know you think he's gonna be this great character, and then he just gets fucked. And it's like, it's
It made
fine
me
that
so
that
sad.
happened,
Well,
but
and
you
then the
gave him
girl
this awesome scene, and then you instantly murdered him,
Yep.
and you want us to feel a certain way about it. It should have been, I don't know, 2 scenes. Like, give us anything to relate to these characters at all.
Yeah. And then like they kill him off so quickly, and then all of a sudden like the female cop that was there, like she just starts taking over, but they give her like this thing where it's like it almost feels like we're supposed to have the same trust in everything that we gave to the detective just instantly to her, and she's not been in the rest of the fucking movie.
I don't know if I agree with. I feel like they made her such a nothing berry right off the top. I don't feel like they wanted me to invest in anything.
Well, she starts like running around trying to help the mom, and like
Yeah, but we knew how that was gonna go.
Yeah.
We knew how
At that
was gonna
point,
go.
he's fully snapped. So yeah, I figured she was gonna die, but she lasts way the fuck longer than all the rest of the cops, and I'm like, oh, is she supposed to like? Are you about to try to make her a plot point or something? And then like they just didn't really do anything with that character. And I'm like, I wish that there had been like maybe a few interactions between the detective and her, like give them like some more personality, some more relationship to where it really feels like once like things happen to characters, there are stakes there.
And even though I like the characters, sometimes their motivations feel fucking crazy. Like, I love Elizabeth Banks as the mother, but also like, what are you doing?
Maybe-
like, why aren't you freaking the fuck out about your
Maybe
kid?
don't just also take a random kid-like thing that fell from space
And then keep
raise
it
it
in-
as your own.
And keep it in the barn, bruh?
What?
What the fuck?
Bro, but that's Superman.
Wild. I
know. But the thing is that there's a hyper realism to these characters in a lot of
Yeah.
sense, especially the dad, who is such a hyper realist. He's like, I'm going to shoot my own kid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Which
he's
that scene-
he's so aware of what he needs to do
Yeah.
that it makes you wonder, like, does the mother need fucking medication? Is it like when you have a cat and you start going crazy from like the fumes of the cat shit? You know, that one disease?
Yeah.
Except it's with alien baby poop. And she's slowly gone insane and doesn't realize that her kid's a murderer. Like, what is the reason for her calmness and her evasion of facts?
But also, can we talk about like the emotional gravity of that scene with the dad? Because like there has been a lot of shit where like the dad was going.
It was there, but I think it was there mainly because of the strength of the actor on the screen. They didn't earn the level that they had because the only times they've had interactions before was when he was like, I'm already over this kid. Like when the kid threw him into the fucking shelving and shit. Like he was already like, fuck this kid. So like when he was like, I'm going to kill this kid, I was like, right on. Like we were all on the same page at that point. There was no mistakes to be made. So, you know, I don't really buy it as much. Like I'm just like, yeah, that was really emotionally heavy, but it's also like, it feels like you just adopted this kid 4 weeks ago.
Well, there had been a few scenes with the dad where he goes through and he like tries to have those little conversations with him and everything, and
yeah,
like,
and it feels like he's talking to a kid he met 4 weeks ago. You know what I mean? It just there was nothing establishing them as a family already.
yeah,
So little was there, and it just didn't have to be that flimsy.
yeah. Again, there are definitely, I feel like there are some great strengths to this movie. Mainly, a lot of those strengths lie in the actors that they had on screen. Like every one of those family members, their acting was just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, even the kids' acting was
Yeah,
great.
he was really good. Yeah,
Great.
I have no qualms with anyone's direct. I guess the little girl wasn't the best, but we're talking about
No.
child
Yeah,
actors
like
here.
the main
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah, but like the main characters, the boy, the parents, the uncle and aunt kind of vibe, all that stuff made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
And was pretty good. I just think that like here's the thing, it doesn't even take a lot of time to build up emotional resonance in a family. Like if you think about Spirited Away, you see those parents for like 10
I
seconds.
love that movie. But you
But
know
you-
those parents.
But you get it and you understand the relationship just based on the little bit of time that they spent developing those characters talking in the car.
Yeah.
Like there was no issues with the caliber of actors and actresses they had and the budget they had to where they could have made a compelling family drama about this. And they just were like, nah.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
feel
know.
like there was a lot of focus on the wrong things, but again, I did enjoy myself a lot while watching.
It makes for a lot of good clips on YouTube, like the diner scene, guys. If you don't want to watch the movie, you should still watch the diner scene.
But that's very well done.
I feel like that's a master class in like tension building.
Yeah, definitely.
That was just like so much fun
just
to
like
watch that play out.
The fucking resistance of pulling the glass out of the eye, and you're just like, fuck. You don't want to look at it and shit. No, please.
But then you have to look at it.
But you have to look at it. Or even just some minorly tense scenes where, like, you know, like he killed his uncle with the car dropping. Or just him stalking his aunt inside of her house and being a weirdo and like hiding in the closet and shit. All that stuff vibed for me completely. And I just don't understand.
I feel like this was a good
it was a real, like
movie.
I said, it's like the ultimate like unfulfilled like potential. It had so much potential, especially when you see how they orchestrated to the violent, horrific scenes. It just had so much potential of being a way better movie, and it just didn't live up to it.
Well, and also like one of the things you were talking about, like, did I feel sad that they didn't get to enfold in a big cinematic universe or anything to it? And I'm like, honestly, how would you even fit
Well, I was
this
kind of
into a
memeing
big
because, you know,
universe?
it's a part of the
Was it a part of the dark universe?
it's already a part of a cinematic. Did you ever see Super with Rainn Wilson? The comedy action superhero movie? Did you ever see it?
I don't think so.
He hits people with a wrench. It's a superpower. It's a part of the same cinematic universe, genuinely, yeah.
Jeez.
And it was just it's going to be a part of like the Gun cinematic superhero universe.
Huh.
But you know, this movie didn't really do that great, so it is what it is. I think it's worth watching, especially if you're a fan of horror and superhero films, because it's the closest mesh I've ever seen of those two concepts.
It definitely scratches that itch, but there is something just inherently about both of those things that kind of treat each other like water and oil.
If you really liked Multiverse of Madness, you'll like this movie.
Yeah.
There you go. I mean, you might not love it, but you'll like it.
Yeah.
It's got so many elements of horror blended with like superhero mythos and stuff. I mean, it's definitely gratifying when you finally see the kid in his little costume he made being creepy as hell flying through a cornfield. I mean, it's eerie as hell, and they really accomplished that part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a question about the mask. Mm-hmm. Was it supposed to be a little Cthulhu-y, or was that just
I think
the design? Because I was reading Cthulhu-y when he designed it.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think that the element of the mask was to like hide his humanity and do the opposite of what Superman did, where Superman
doesn't wear a mask.
Superman hides pretty much everything else, right? He hides his strength, he hides his muscles. And then this kid is kind of the inverse of that, where he's hiding his face, he's hiding his humanity, but he's still dressed up like a normal boy, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like an inverse thing, I think, is what they were going for.
I do get where you're coming at with
I do,
like,
yeah.
The way that it fell, it did kind of have like
kind of reminded me of like a Scarecrow from Batman Begins almost, you know?
But also like Cthulhu's definitely a fair comparison because
it is
cosmic horror.
Tentacly,
yeah.
I was like, oh, that's an interesting design.
Yeah. I wonder, with the spaceship and everything, I wonder why the spaceship's metal, like they just didn't give us enough of that either.
See, I just assumed, I was like, oh, well, like it's from his planet. It's the same idea as Superman, where it's like they never show like, oh, Superman's ship could hurt him, but it's specifically something from that planet is the only thing that.
But let's say it didn't crash land, right? Let's say it landed normally. Mm-hmm. How was he supposed to get out?
Yeah, why would
well,
it? Well,
it's the metal doesn't like touching it doesn't hurt him, but he touched.
It can pierce his skin
of him. So yeah,
then how did it break when it fell to Earth?
There's a lot of questions there.
Well, I don't think that the metal is inherently stronger than the metal here.
No, but
it's
Logan
just a
and
specific
we want to know
kind
why.
of.
But why? Well, why?
It's the same way like Superman has to shave his beard with his laser eyes.
The point is
But why?
Let's never talk about the shaving. There was a whole ad campaign for Man of Steel with Gillette about how Superman should shave. Let's not get into it. I just want to say though that this is not a question you can answer because they didn't answer it. You know what I mean?
Fair.
And that's on them, not on you. But they didn't fucking answer.
I appreciate you for trying to.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Logan and I are on the same wavelength here. We're like, we want to know like their like choices for this. You weren't the writer. You couldn't tell
like
us.
I don't need a full Man of Steel where a fucking image of Jor-El magically pops up and explains everything.
Yeah.
But like anything at all would have been good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like anything at all.
Well, in the little bit of exposition that they gave,
And like, why was he so
face.
desperate to go to the space? Like, why was he desperate to get to
Yeah,
it?
why
Well, it
was it
seemed like
calling him?
Well, it seemed like it was like a Manchurian candidate
So like
activating
the
him.
spaceship
That's what
was alive.
Well, it's
Was
probably.
it another being, or
I
were they just
assumed-
transporting their information from wherever they were to the spaceship?
And if they are like, that's the thing. There's so many
Again,
questions.
yeah,
It felt very Manchurian candidate to me.
No,
It's
I get that, but
like, oh, you send somebody somewhere. You're like, think like Goku. They
Yeah.
sent him to Earth to wipe
but
him out.
Goku was
and then he
never
was supposed
desperate to
get
like go
the-
back to his spaceship. You know what I mean?
Because he got that big dang on.
But
his head.
even before that, he wasn't desperate to go back to his space. It's not like
and like what would have happened if the spaceship would have got completely destroyed? What would he have been, a normal like?
because
boy?
that's the thing that apparently activated
there's a lot
him.
riding on
Yeah.
that spaceship to have.
And if it's
still
not a
been
special
there.
metal, like you said, if like the metal itself isn't like stronger and like can sustain damage from hitting the earth, then like couldn't it have potentially been completely destroyed? And then
Yeah.
what? He's just like a chill guy.
Well, again, like kryptonite is never shown to be stronger than any other gem on.
Well, no,
Earth.
that's different though, because we're talking about how this thing can specifically pierce his skin.
Yeah, and if you make kryptonite into a knife, it can stab through Superman.
And the spaceship was practically alive and calling for him and randomly glowing, you know?
See,
But
I
then
don't
how
think
did
that
it just break?
I don't think that the ship has. Again, just like you can break kryptonite.
Oh.
Like to normal people, kryptonite's just a fucking rock.
So it's magical metal.
No, it's specific. Well, it's magical. The
It
same
has
way
to be
kryptonite
some
is-
level. In order for
Yeah.
your argument to work, you have to admit that that's some magical metal.
I don't so much think magical. It's just
Then how did it
Or-
literally call for him?
no. The ship was getting a signal. If the planet that he came from sent a signal to the ship to say, "Hey, time to start murder," and the ship sent out the signal to activate him, that would be a signal that came from the planet to the ship.
But why is the metal, if the metal's weak enough to break upon impact with the earth, then why is it strong enough to pierce
Well,
his
because
skin?
you don't send a
'Cause it's
spaceship.
magical.
You don't send a spaceship out expecting it to crash.
No, I know, but this for some
Really?
reason has alloy that can
The
stab through his
spaceships we have
skin.
sent out do not have a good track record with that.
Yeah, but I'm saying like if you
Shout
send
out to the
somebody
Challenger.
if you
Shout
send
out
somebody-
in the comments. Hashtag Challenger. Anyway, I feel like we've beaten this to death, don't you?
Yeah,
Well, I don't even know what kind of game we could play.
I've got one.
Oh, great.
You
Zane's
have
got one.
one?
got
Let's
one.
fucking go.
I
We'll be
got
right
one.
back with Zane's game, baby. Let's do this. Welcome back. Zane, would you like to explain and name your game?
So I'm gonna go ahead. The name of this game is Dark Side Origin Stories.
Try again. Come on, that was weak. That's
basically-
nothing like Pitch That Bitch. Try again.
So it comes down. Fine. It's a weird comic book version of Pitch That Bitch. What?
Pitch That Bitch comic book edition.
Yeah. What superhero origin would you like to see turned into a horror movie?
I'm totally genuinely thinking about this now and didn't prepare. No,
Logan, would you like to go first?
sure. I talked in the last part of the review about the concept of a bully teen, somebody who basically turns into the school shooter Superman. I would like the idea of nerdy Peter Parker getting bitten, his uncle being murdered as though he was, and him essentially going. He tries to go. He tries to date Mary Jane. He tries to do a bunch of things, and he's just constantly rejected. So what he does with his powers is he basically becomes a Richard Ramirez type Night Stalker as Peter Parker Spider-Man. He goes around, he entraps people with his spider-like powers and whatnot, and he's a serial killer. And and the person that's hunting him is not even a detective. He's a writer for the Daily Bugle who goes on this whole rampage about how there's this secret man in the night who's going out and he's stalking people and using superpowers, and his own daughter is murdered.
That's good.
Then he teams up with one Captain Stacy, who's Gwen Stacy, his daughter, was also murdered by the Spider Killer. Thoughts?
That's really fucking wild.
And it's just like a detective story, a Zodiac A and B, or you could compare it to Seven, like two guys coming together. They're trying to figure out who this is. They eventually figure out it's a Peter Parker kind of deal, and it's just a very violent romp following.
And if you kept him as like a photographer as his day job.
Well, no, my whole thing was that he's a daytime photographer, but he takes pictures of his victims.
Investigation.
He takes pictures of his victims as well.
I think that would that has the potential to have some like wild like tension.
And like the scummy streets of New York that he's able to swing around and evade the police through. He's able to climb up buildings and crawl into people's windows. He's the perfect serial killer.
Yeah.
So that's where I was at.
Producer Lacey, would you like to?
Yeah, I don't think mine are as fleshed out, but I have two. Okay. One thing I think could be interesting if basically like Thor and Loki switch personalities. Like if Thor was the one that was all chaos and like evil and trying to take down Asgard.
That somehow makes Chris Hemsworth hotter, don't you think? That makes him so much hotter. I don't know why.
They adopt Loki and like he's like this golden child trying to like fix everything. I think that could be interesting.
Like a reverse orphan.
Yeah.
Like a reverse orphan. That's such a good idea, actually. Yeah. Like you think
Freaky
Thor's
Friday
this golden child,
and just switch the personalities.
Yeah. Freaky Friday.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the original or the really racially sensitive one with Jamie Lee Curtis?
All of it, but probably the second because that was my generation.
Dude,
of Freaky
the Lindsay
Friday.
Lohan, Jamie Lee Curtis, Freaky Friday.
And then
didn't they like share a fortune cookie and like some magic happened or some shit?
That's exactly what
That's
happened.
incredibly offensive. Anyway, what's your second one?
My second one I thought could be interesting is if Captain America, whenever they jacked him up basically, if that somehow made him evil and made him want to basically become what he was supposed to be, like this killing machine.
You know how he's like a big nerd in the beginning? He's like an incel. He's like an angry incel.
Yeah.
That could be good.
Yeah, that was my second thing. And maybe
you didn't want to fuck me till I was Captain America. Fucking
maybe he even turns on the people who made him and teams up for the other side.
Oh my God.
I was thinking.
That's actually fucking funny. Yeah. I love that.
Those were my ideas.
I would see that. I would 100% go see the Captain America one. Sweet. Captain Incel. Oh my God. He's out there fighting for all you neckbeards.
Maybe just do that to all the Avengers. Give them a little episode, make this a little TV series and make it
just
anti-heroes.
What if they were bad?
The Revengers.
Yeah.
That'd be good. I'd watch that.
All right, Zane.
All right, Zane. It's your game, so you better come with a fucking fire-ass one.
So mine is so fucking out of left field.
Oh, no.
But
he's going to be like, I would like if the Wonder Twins were murderers.
No. So my idea, kind of building off of something coming from space, but Green Lantern. So Green Lantern, the whole idea... One of the Green Lanterns dies and he lands into the world and the ring finds somebody. But what if during something happened that corrupted the ring and it sought out somebody who was wholly not qualified for it? Somebody like a
Guy Gardner. I mean, he's racist, but anyway.
Yeah,
but different. Worse than Guy Gardner. Okay.
So just somebody who's going through almost imagine giving a serial killer the powers of Green Lantern, where in some aspects, there are some points in time where Green Lantern becomes a god, because as long as your willpower is stronger than another person's willpower, they cannot beat the ring. So somebody who is just a full break from reality takes that ring and they are just creating these awful nightmare scenarios where they're trapping people in the Ring's creations, and they're almost treating it like a fun house where they're going through, they're catching their victims, they're building this whole scape, and it's this just like almost Saw version game where somebody with the ring is able to create something and just like do awful things. And it's just like them going through the world trying to take it over, and people just everyday people, same concept as Saw, where you're just trying to escape.
Can other lanterns kind of do that? Like, aren't there like evil lanterns?
So there are other lanterns that have that, like there's like
I am not well versed. Like, I've always kind of steered clear of, ever since I read Guy Gardner stuff, and I was like, this guy's kind of racist.
Yeah.
I kind of just stayed away from Green Lantern.
So there are some other rings that have weird powers, but as far as like the actual ability to manipulate the universe around them, the Green Lantern ring is kind of the pinnacle of that whole idea. The Yellow Ring is sort of similar, but that is fear-based, so maybe it would be something kind of like where somebody...
Well, you know, if it's about willpower, it could just go to somebody who's completely deranged, you know, doesn't even realize what they're doing is bad.
Exactly.
Maybe put it in like I think I would make it like an ill-advised Green Lantern who thinks they're a good person and is just doing horrific shit.
Yeah.
I think that would work better for me, but...
Yeah, exactly something like that. Somebody who thinks that they are in the right, but they are so convinced of their thought process that they don't realize what they're doing is horrific. And because their will is so strong, nobody can convince them otherwise.
Have you ever seen Fear with Mark Wahlberg? It's a really ridiculous movie. It's Mark Wahlberg is this obsessed boyfriend who, like, you know, he's just like, he gets like this girl's tattooed, gets her name tattooed on him, and like breaks into her house and like beats up her friends and her dad and stuff. Like, he's totally wild. Imagine if it was about an obsessed boyfriend who got the Green Lantern ring.
Oh,
that could be fucking scary.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. If you guys haven't seen that movie, don't watch it.
But yeah, tell us in the comments what superhero you would like to see get a horrorized superhero origin and how you would play it out. And
I'm sure there are some actual interesting issues out there of stories that are kind of like that. So if you know of any that kind of fall into that Brightburn, this game element of things, leave them down in the comments. Tell us what we should check out. And also make sure to like, subscribe, hit the mother fudging bell, do whatever, and keep up with us. Lacey, do you have something you want to add?
No. Thanks for listening.
Peace out, kids.
Bye.